And good evening and welcome, chat, to this, the 43rd episode of American Spirits, wherein we learn that a second uprising has hit the Southwest. Mr. Bagby, how are you today?
I'm doing well. It's good to be back with you. I was
Excellent.
in remote areas for a while and did not have connection, but I'm happy to be able to join you once again.
And we are overjoyed to have you back. And just as overjoyed, I'm sure, is Mr. Thomas Wayne Riley. How are you, sir?
Very good. How are y'all?
Doing well, doing well. In your absence, Mr. Bagby, Mr. Riley regaled us with some of the gritty details of the Alamo and its aftermath. And what is on the docket today?
Well, we're going to talk about the surprising and overwhelming conclusion of the Texas Revolution and the great rise of Sam Houston to national prominence. He becomes this heroic leader uh, coming back from several severe personal disasters. It's really the one of the greatest American comeback stories ever,
Hmm.
and he's a very appealing figure. So we'll talk about him as well. And just how far we're going to get with our information today. We've got lots of fun things to discuss, but the big conclusion here is the Battle of San Jacinto, which we preserve the gringo pronunciation of because it was
Mhm.
the gringos who won the battle, of course. So
Yes.
they can pronounce it the way they like. Mr. Riley and I have been talking about gringo pronunciations of the Mexican language recently. I conceded to him that being that New Mexico was the one province of Mexico that had a substantial Mexican population. It was really the only one we conquered that did. Uh, I think that the Mexican pronunciation is permissible in New Mexico. What is your position on this matter, Mr. Riley?
That's absolutely true. California had less than 10. I think I said this on a stream. California less than 10,000. Nevada 0. Colorado 0. Utah 0. Texas 4,000 Mexicans. New Mexico had about, I think, 40,000, somewhere around there. And so they kind of get a pass. I mean, I live in, I'll just say it, it's everywhere online. I live in a town spelled Tijeras. So, I say Tijeras, but you talk to a New Mexican, they say, oh, it's Tijeras? And I'm like, no, I can't go that far. It's not Tijeras. It's not Tijeras. No, it's just Tijeras. You'll get a Tijeras out of me, which means scissor, actually, because of a canyon.
Tigeris.
Or that, a new special fourth way to say it.
Mhm.
We could just call it scissors and be done with it.
Scissor Canyon. We'll just call it Scissor Canyon from now on.
Mhm.
A beautiful place. It's
If
the
anyone has ever,
canyon.
if anyone's
Yeah,
ever driven east or west on I-40, east of Albuquerque, that's those mountains you go through is where I live in. Don't knock on my door, please. I got signs saying you'll be shot, but that's fine.
beautiful country. So we were talking in the previous streams about the Alamo and Goliad, the terrible disaster of Goliad, but the strangely inspiring massacre at the Alamo. The Alamo is such a special event. There are a few like this, like the Battle of Lexington, for instance, in '75, right before the Continental Congress decides on independence and such. Disaster for the colonial militia. They're driven from the field with great loss, and they rally later that day at Concord Bridge, famously. But we still celebrate it. We celebrate Bunker Hill, which is also, uh, before independence, even though it was a defeat. The colonial militia is driven away from the outskirts of Boston. they lay siege to Boston nevertheless, even though they're driven from their bulwarks on Bunker Hill, or Breed's Hill, as the Bostonians will always remind us. We just all know it as Bunker Hill, so c'est la vie. The Alamo, they took 1,500 Mexicans with them, a substantial chunk of Santa Anna's army, even though it was only 187 defenders there. That's a really disproportionate take in a battle, and Santa Anna's decision to treat them all like traitors and not even give them Christian burial is extraordinary. You know, he was being very brutal in his retaliation, but it didn't work out for him. After the disaster of Goliad, which we've previously discussed, the effect on the Texans is really rallying. The civil government, under the leadership of David Burnett, the interim president of Texas, they are making appeals. Burnett is constantly in conflict with Houston, who's the commander in chief of Texas forces, kind of like George Washington was for the Continental Army. Houston basically has carte blanche after this. According to Ray Allen Billington, who has an excellent survey of this united opinion and united leadership. It was a very galvanizing moment for the Texans, especially after the treacherous massacre at Goliad. Fannon's men honorably surrender, and they're marched out and all shot to death anyway. 350 of them, more or less. Houston wrote of this in his papers. He said, "Had I consulted the wishes of all, I should have been like the ass between two stacks of hay.
Hmm.
I consulted none. I held no councils of war. If I err, the blame is mine." So he was in complete control here, of the strategy, the military strategy. The galvanizing effect here is also evident in what results after the Alamo and Goliad. You have this massive refugee movement out of the center of Texas. They're all fleeing back towards the Brazos River and further inland and such. It's called the Runaway Scrape. So thousands of civilians choking the roads, trying to get as far away from Santa Anna as they can. They expect the traitor's death. Tell me, Mr. Riley, did you talk about the Cutthroat song at
I
the
didn't.
Alamo?
I did not talk about the Cutthroat song.
So
And
this
I,
may be. Go ahead.
no. I want you to tell me that. I just have a couple of words on the Runaway Scrape and Houston's control over the army. But yeah, I would love to hear about the Cutthroat song because I know nothing about it actually.
Well, I'm gonna have to offer myself to be checked here because this may just be lore. It was something that I just shared with my students year after year, and to the point where it was just part of my routine. But I would play for them this very lonesome, haunting Mexican trumpet solo. It was called the Gueyo, which means the cutthroat song. And it was supposed to be some military signal that no quarter would be given.
There is a song that the
And
Mexicans play when they raise the flag that means no quarter given, and they play a song with it. So yeah, sounds right to me.
yeah, it's great. And it's been artistically rendered. I'm sure the military version is much simpler. But you
The
should
Texans
look it up.
recognize it at the Alamo.
Indeed, yes. So I guess it is substantiated. Um, so this was Santa Anna's clear message. Uh, the men in arms in Texas would be given no quarter, and the experience at the Alamo and at Goliad manifests that. So all men of those opinions in Texas are trying to get out of the way with their families, and they're also rallying to Houston. So Houston starts out with only a couple hundred men in his little army, and with the runaway scrape, once these men get their families to a place of safety, mostly just abandoning their homesteads and livestock, even some of them just leaving their families on the frontier and going to Houston, his army grows. So doubling in size in just a couple of months because everyone knows everything's on the line. They either make their stand or they're gonna get executed for treason by Santa Anna. According to DeWeese, who is a Texan correspondent, his letters have been compiled and published. He said the roads were literally crowded with wagons, men, women, and children hurrying on with the greatest speed to some place of safety. The Texas civil government under Burnett, um, he's made uh, he's made president at the convention at Washington on the Brazos way back when we started talking about this. His government retreats several times and ends up in Galveston. So they're in the largest town in Texas at the time. They're down on the coast on the barrier island. And Santa Anna moves up the coast to cut off Galveston from the interior. So this is a very aggressive move. Um, Santa Anna is cutting off Houston from Galveston, and then he can go down to Galveston. He's only a few miles away from Galveston. He's right on what is now the Houston Ship Channel between Houston and Galveston, very close to where the Space Center is and such like.
Bagby, can I
And
really quickly cut in?
absolutely.
So Houston was in Gonzales, that town that famously had to come and take it. And when he found out about word, because he was over in the Cherokee land asking the Cherokees not to invade Texas while we were at war with Mexico. And then he came back down and he took over the army again under Smith and then Burnett. And he was in Gonzales when Dickinson's wife showed up after she was allowed to leave the Alamo. And he heard the word of Alamo, and it's a very sad story about every woman in town because all of their husbands were killed. Almost the entire town of Gonzales sent their men, and they did not make it out. And so he's in Gonzales when he started getting men rallying towards him, men from Texas, men from southern states mostly, Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, all the southern states are coming in to help out. He starts gathering this army, like you said, of a couple hundred, and he leaves Gonzales and they go north to the Colorado River, not the Colorado River of the Southwest, but the Colorado River of Texas. And they're going to make a final stand there. On the way there, he sends men back to Gonzales to burn it. All of the Gonzales residents are very upset that he just burned the town of Gonzales. And as he's marching to the Colorado River, he keeps picking up these people, and he decides to make a final stand at the Colorado River. And then he gets word that, hey, two Mexican armies are now teaming up and they're coming here. One of them is going to split up again and go north above our point on the river, and one's going to go south. And so we're going to be surrounded on this side of the river. So he says, okay. He abandons that defensive stand, goes to a different one, abandons that one. At this point, he has hundreds desert his army. Then he goes to San Felipe de Austin. He says, we're going to make our stand here. He gets more word that, like, hey, there's going to be like thousands of Mexican soldiers coming here. You don't have enough. So he burns it and leaves. He loses again hundreds of volunteers, but at the same time, hundreds more are flocking in from Texas and the U.S. He goes to another place, same thing. He doesn't burn that place, but this is my final stand. He says, no, we're not doing this here. And then he hears word that the civilian government has left Washington on the Brazos and now they're over in Galveston. So he's like, we're going to go there. But before I let you finish real quick, he is marching his army from where he was to Galveston. And there's a fork in the road. One fork goes north across the Sabine into Louisiana. The other fork goes to Galveston. He has not told anyone what his plan is. So a bunch of his commanders ride up front and tell him, if you go north, you will go alone. We are all going to go to Galveston by ourselves. He says nothing and turns to the Galveston Road and leads all his men down to Galveston.
Reminds me of the anecdote about Grant during the Wilderness Campaign when, after having taken a bloodying, he stands at a crossroad, one road leading back north, the other leading further south, and he just plants his horse at the crossroad and takes a cigar and points the army south.
Yeah, that's a good echo. That's a very good echo.
Well, Houston's having reliability problems, as all commanders do when they are leading militia. They're leading a volunteer force. The men have come on their own accord. Houston is working to discipline them, and this is accomplished through many long marches, through the burning of the towns as they're retreating, and he's galvanizing this force. But as you say, lots of men are coming and going. Well, their families now don't have a place to live. You know, they're refugees, and in similar conditions, such as the War for Independence, this is a case of a lot of people like locals who are experiencing the effects of military campaign right where they live. They have to go away, provide for their families. Many of them come back. And this seems to be the case here as well. Billington talks about that in his history. So Burnett is frantic down in Galveston. He's saying, all is lost if you don't come here immediately. But Houston is also determined to make a major stand against Santa Anna's forces. He approaches them between the San Jacinto River and Buffalo Bayou, which is just adjacent to the modern day Houston Ship Channel. He has 783 men on April 20th. They've got a lot of women and children that are, fleeing the area in their immediate vicinity. And Sam Houston audaciously camps his men only 500 yards or so away from the Mexican camp with Santa Anna's army.
On April 19th, Houston wrote his friend Raquette up in Nacogdoches and said, "We are in preparation to meet Santa Anna. It is the only chance of saving Texas."
Indeed. Now, the geography of the area is important to take into account. So you've got 2 rivers and lots of marsh. There is a bridge that leads north up towards the Brazos. And there's the road that's headed south down to Galveston. Houston has camped his men right over a hill from Santa Anna's encampment. So Houston knows Santa Anna's over there. Santa Anna is waiting for reinforcements. Houston is aware that Santa Anna has a roughly equal-sized force. His force has been bled down considerably because of his losses at Alamo. And Santa Anna has also sent his men around Texas trying to track down Houston and confront Houston. So Santa Anna is encamped there by San Jacinto, waiting for reinforcements. The reinforcements arrive, another 500 men, the morning of the engagement. So now,
one more interruption real quick.
yeah, go right ahead.
So Houston only gave one recorded speech right before this engagement you're about to explain, or about to tell about. And he said, "The army will cross Buffalo Bayou, and we will meet the enemy. Some of us may be killed and must be killed, but soldiers, remember the Alamo, the Alamo, the Alamo. Remember the Alamo. Remember Goliad." That is what he was supposed to have said before this engagement.
Death and glory. Everything's on the line. You know, most of these men had seen their families run away as refugees at this point. Many of them had seen their homes burn.
One of
They
the
wouldn't let it
men
fall in
with
the hands of the enemy.
one of the men with Houston, his name is Alexander Somerville. He said, "After such a speech, but damned few will be taken prisoners. That I know."
Well, Houston does something really audacious as an opening move. He sends out Deaf Smith to burn the bridge headed to the Brazos in the north. And this was to prevent Santa Anna from escaping with his army. So this was akin, I mean, this was prevented Houston from escaping too. So this is like Caesar burning his ships.
And from
I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with
yeah.
me.
And further reinforcements could not get to Santa Anna once that bridge was burned by Deaf Smith, who was a great character, a great man. He has a lot of good anecdotes during this whole 10-year period, or 5-year period.
Partly because he can't hear what anyone's saying.
What?
Partly because he's misunderstanding.
No, I'm sorry, that was a joke.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm dense. Yeah, so Sam Houston is locking in Santa Anna. Santa Anna does receive his 500 reinforcements, but these men had marched for 2 days with no rations and virtually no rest. So they are utterly exhausted. They arrive the morning of the battle. So April 21st. Am I getting that right? Was it the 20th or the 21st?
It was
Well, anyway.
April 20th.
Okay, so they arrived the morning of April 20th.
It was 2 p.m.
collapse. Yes.
2 p.m.
So
the reinforcements arrive, and they're dead dog tired. So are St. Anna's men, because they've been digging fortifications all day too. But
yeah. So famously, the Mexicans retire for the afternoon. They have minimal guard. This is in spite of the Texans being camped right next to them.
and they knew
they
could see them.
Yeah,
and they still took a siesta.
It's incredible. So that was an interesting decision. The story that, and this is another bit that may only be lore. The story is that the famous Yellow Rose of Texas was entertaining Santa Anna in his tent that afternoon. Now that's the story. I don't know how many times I've heard that story. I haven't read that story. I've been told that story. I don't know how many times. That accounts for Santa Anna's distraction and lack of preparation. I don't know if that's true or not.
I'm not sure I believe it, but it is a good story.
It is. Yeah. It's another bit of lore involved. I don't know how many Texans will tell you that story, but
well, I read that he was sleeping under a tree in the shade, and I read that he was in his tent, and I read that he was looking at the battlefield. And all of these sources were pretty reliable, so I don't know what he was doing. I don't think anyone does alive.
We've got fair evidence that he goes into a tent at some point
His own commanders
during the
do
battle.
write that he was in a tent.
He does change his clothes, which is also suspicious. He is not in his general's uniform. He is in the uniform of a private when he
Oh,
is
I did not
captured.
read that. Oh, well, when he was captured,
Yes.
that's because he took it from a soldier that was dead after what you're about to describe. I think. I don't know. I think on the battlefield, he and some of his generals fled early. Well, we don't. Yeah, I don't want to jump ahead here.
So Houston, Billington has Houston say, "Victory is certain, trust in God and fear not." He then leads his men over the hill at San Jacinto. Now, this is a good moment for us to digress on Houston's character. We had previously talked about his origins in Tennessee. He was governor. He was a war hero in the Creek War, had several very serious wounds. Uh, don't we don't know so much about the nature of those wounds and their lasting impact, other than that may have had something to do with his penchant for alcohol. Um, he his first marriage fails uh, immediately. He married at the age of 36, partly because he had been just overwhelmed with his war wounds and with the treatment after the Creek War. So he gets a late start. Um, he his marriage is eventually uh, ends in divorce to his first wife that he married in 29. In 1830, he goes to the Indian Territory, what is now Oklahoma. He marries a second time there to Tiana Rogers, a widow. Um, that marriage also doesn't last. When he when he goes to Washington and has the caning incident with Congressman Stanberry of Ohio, he's fined by Congress for this. He resolves not to pay the fine and go into exile. He leaves American territory completely. He's lost his position in the as an Indian agent. Um, his wife does not choose to come with him, so she had a Cherokee marriage with him. She gets a Cherokee divorce with him. He's already kind of outside the law here. He's not getting a legally recognized marriage while he's in the Indian Territory. And then he leaves for Texas. He gets to Texas in 1832, so he'd been there for a few years before the war breaks out.
Because this is 1836, if people forgot.
Yes, this is 1836. Now I found my other note. Battle of San Jacinto, April 21st. So I don't know if I got that right or not.
So
he
the
is like
Sam Houston, the Texans were
life.
on the. Oh, sorry. Sam Houston, the Texans
Oh,
arrived
sorry.
on the 20th, and Santa Anna arrived on the 21st.
Ah, okay.
And I think I was wrong. It does look like at about 4 a.m. Yeah, at about 4 a.m. the Texans woke up because at 8 a.m. the reinforcements arrived. Yeah, on the 21st.
Okay, so that's the 500 reinforcements Santa Anna received.
Yep,
the day of the
540
battle.
men. Yes.
So at this point in Houston's life, he has had two absolutely devastating personal embarrassments that result in him leaving the area entirely. he does go back to Tennessee a couple times. He visits family. He is really unpopular in Tennessee at this point because of his first marriage. And also the fact that he married, according to Indian custom, a year after his first marriage, not waiting for the divorce settlement in
Mm.
legal forms in Tennessee. The divorce is procured in 1837 when it's finally done. This is a strange period um, in regards to divorce. It's almost unheard of. There are very few examples of it. The divorce is procured on grounds of abandonment. But when he does visit Tennessee in the years previous to this, he gets booed out of a theater. The men of the town boo him out, and the call is the honor of women. They are upset with him because of his first marriage. And of course, the circumstances of that are still unknown to us. We don't know why his wife left him. There are great explanations, potential explanations for it, but the simple answer to the question, biographers have been searching for this for a long time, and we don't know why his first marriage failed. Because the principals kept their lips sealed for the rest of their lives. So we don't know that it was dishonorable on Houston's part or not. We know that he was totally brokenhearted about it, and did not want it, and let everybody know that he didn't want it. That it wasn't his choice. He wasn't public about it, but he was talking to his friends about it, and that's our information on his side. His first wife did not tell anybody about her side, which is also interesting. But anyway, Houston, he's been crushed by these scandals twice, and has gone to Texas to reinvent himself. And on strength of his executive experience as governor and also a military officer, on strength of his war experience in the Creek War, he is made commander in chief. He lends a lot of credibility to the Texas uh, independence movement because of his former prominence. And now he is having the crowning achievement of his whole career. Houston lines up his men in formation. He sends the cavalry to the flank. He sends out Deaf Smith to burn the bridge. And he advances to the crest of the hill. He's riding out in front of his men, which is an interesting place for a general to be right before the order to fire.
Mhm.
He's telling them to hold their fire. They're going to descend the opposite side of the hill on the Mexican camp. So they're gonna charge the camp with all the tents pitched. The crack soldiers of Santa Anna's army, the so-called Invincibles, are in formation by the time the Texans crest the hill. They aim and fire. Their first volley passes over the heads of the Texans. Santa Anna, well, Sam Houston is out there in front of his men, and he is demonstrating and screaming, "Hold your fire, damn you, hold your fire." He's waiting for that first volley, which I don't know if this was calculated move, why the first Mexican volley failed so dramatically. But it goes right over their heads. Then Houston orders his men to aim and fire. They break several sections of that Mexican line of infantry and then charge through the gaps surrounding the Invincibles and destroying fighting power. They're charging right into the tents where most of the Mexicans are just roused by the volleys of fire.
Hmm.
The cry is, "Remember the Alamo, remember Goliad." The Texans rush the formed Mexican infantry, bayonets fixed. They rush into the camp, bayonets fixed. At the end of the day, Mexican army of 1,360 men, so roughly twice the size of Houston's, they suffer 630 dead. So almost every Texan took a Mexican. Another 730 captured, including Santa Anna himself.
So this is where I
Texans
must intercede.
go right ahead.
So the battle was, again, all the Mexicans are kind of doing a siesta. And then the Texans crested that very small hill, fired, and then Houston called for them to stay, reload, and fire again. But I don't remember who it was, but somebody else amongst the line said, no, charge and rush. And thank goodness that they did, because if they had stayed and reloaded, all of the other sleeping Mexicans would have woken up and gone to their positions. So the Texans overwhelmed the Mexican position completely. And it was bayonets and Bowie knives and the butt of guns and tomahawks too, actually. A lot of talk of tomahawks. And the Mexicans were so disoriented that they kind of the Mexicans were so disoriented they just fled. They're entrenched, which they had been entrenching all night, and then they were sleeping because they were tired. They just left the barricades. There is a Delgado. He wrote, "The utmost confusion prevailed. General Castrillon shouted on one side. On another, Colonel Almonte was giving orders. Some cried out to commence firing, others to lie down to avoid grape shot." Because, quick interruption from the quote, but the Texans lined up their two cannons, the twin sisters is what they called them. They lined up their two cannons in the very center of this very long, 1 mile wide line of troops approaching the entrenchments. And the cannons were in the very center. And so to lie down to avoid grape shot. Among the latter was His Excellency, meaning Santana. I saw our men flying in small groups, terrified and sheltering themselves behind large trees. I endeavored to force some of them to fight, but all efforts were in vain. The evil was beyond remedy. They were a bewildered and panic-stricken herd. So then the Mexicans flee, the bridge is gone, so they try to cross this river. And there are stories, I won't even quote from, but there are stories where the Mexicans died at the shallowest parts. It's such a large number that men were running on corpses to get to the other side.
So this is overwhelming, and it is a battle fought in such close proximity to the camp that it completely breaks the Mexican army when the Texans charge. They are surrounding the only troops in position to resist. The others are maybe not even dressed. They certainly aren't at arms. And so it's so disproportionate. The Texans only suffer 11 dead, several of them mortally wounded and died soon after. 30 wounded, including Sam Houston himself, who suffers yet another war wound, this time in the leg. So it's like his ankle. I believe it broke the bone. So serious wound. Now it does not cripple him. He does walk again, though he's
He would
had a great many serious wounds at this point.
he would be sent to New Orleans to get that wound addressed.
Yes, indeed. It was a serious wound, and they did have facility for that in New Orleans. Ironically, it's one of many trips that Houston had made to New Orleans because of war wounds. The first of those trips for the wounds in the Creek War.
But on
So
this trip
he had
with his
experience
shattered
there.
ankle, he will meet. Well, I don't think he'll meet her, but his future wife, third wife, final wife, will be in the crowd that watches him disboard, or what is it called? Disembark the ship in New Orleans.
Hmm.
Jumping ahead again,
Yes,
sorry.
indeed. Absolutely. So at this point, we see a really curious feature of the Mexican defeat. Santa Anna has been captured. Santa Anna has changed clothes. And there are a couple of stories about this, and it's kind of hard to nail it down. They don't know initially that they have captured El Generalissimo himself. They're organizing the Mexican captives, all 730 of them or whatever, and they notice the Mexican infantry saluting a private and calling him general. And so they investigate and discover it's actually Santa Anna that they've
They're
captured.
yelling El
And they
Presidente.
verify- Yes.
Most discreet
So-
Mexicans.
Not really catching on the meaning of the ruse. So Houston has Santa Anna there with him. May 14th, 1836, there's a treaty worked out partly through Houston, partly through President Burnett down in Galveston. They're called the Treaties of Valesco. These are interesting because Santa Anna has been
Before we
captured.
go into that, I just want to pass on this anecdote, which is that when Santa Anna was hauled before Houston, Houston was of a mind to revisit the crimes of the Alamo upon Santa Anna, but refrained because Santa Anna flashed the Freemasonic sign for distress at him.
I have not heard that. Wow. I have not heard that. Wow.
That makes some sense. It certainly was a popular that really did. The Texans really wanted to hang Santa Anna on the spot,
Oh, they tried
but it was
many
also-
times.
Yeah.
He was imprisoned
it was
at Fort Defiance, I believe, to keep him away from being hanged.
Yeah, because it was a really popular idea to hang the man. But it was also clear both to Houston and Burnett that his diplomatic value was still significant, assuming he would remain president of Mexico, of course. That was not the case. As soon as the news came back of Santa Anna's disaster at San Jacinto, the Mexicans repudiate his government. Now, this is the big problem with Mexico, and we've already addressed it a few times, that they don't have continuity of government at this period. So they have a bad habit of disavowing the actions of the previous administration. And of course, Santa Anna was a controversial figure, a nationalist trying to consolidate power in Mexico City, fighting a civil war with Mexican states, not just Texas, but other Mexican states too, crushing them with his national army. He wins that civil war in Mexico proper before taking it up to Texas. He has not yet gone to Mexico City in glory. He has not marched to Mexico City in triumph. He's now after these Anglo-Texans, and they humiliate him. So he has in Parliament. They repudiate his and their credibility doing so.
Hmm.
So is replaced in Mexico by Anastasio Bustamante. He's the new El Presidente of Mexico.
But even before that,
Bustamante,
Santa Anna did go to DC and he talked with the president and he told the United States government, he literally went on a trail from Texas to New Orleans on a boat, and then he was paraded through all these towns in America to Washington, D.C. And all of the Southerners were amazed that this was the guy that killed all of these Southerners and these Texans. And he told the president, like, oh, yeah, as soon as I get back to my presidency, I'm going to recognize Texas as its own republic. Don't worry. He gets back to Texas and immediately does not do that. And he is ousted by Bustamante, but he's back 2 more times, including during our ultimate or penultimate, the reason why we're doing this, the Mexican War. But yeah, he's back in a couple more times before that.
he's a really interesting guy. He's the sort of guy, I go to Mexican restaurants sometimes and I see Pancho Villa drawn on the wall. And
Every
I
Mexican
like that
restaurant has
kind of thing.
Pancho Villa.
Yeah, I like that. They can like Pancho Villa. That's fine. The fact that Pancho Villa wanted to kill as many gringos as to get his hands on, I'm okay with that too. I kind of like a spirited Mexican. And he's a funny character. I would love to see Santa Anna in Mexican restaurants more often. He still has prominence among Mexicans.
Well, he
There's
lost.
still a kind of recognition.
He lost Texas, and then he lost the Mexican-American War, which I just call the Mexican War, but I'm sure they call the American War. But
Yeah,
he lost Texas and then the American War, so I'm sure they're like, I don't want to talk about him.
He is a rather Bonapartist
He's-
figure.
He called himself the Napoleon of the West.
he's a fun figure. He's one of the more colorful figures in Mexican history, and I have a certain fondness for him as a character.
Does
But
he have any political legacy in Mexico today? Is there a faction that is the descendant of the Santa Anna faction?
it would be a nationalist faction.
Hmm.
And that's an important one in Mexican history. We have Benito Juarez, who is latter successor to Santa Anna's vision of a consolidated Mexico, nationalist Mexico.
Mr. Bagby, you're cutting in and out on us. Do you think you could try turning your camera off and see if that improves things?
Yes.
Ah,
Yeah,
that's
let's
better.
try that. Okay,
Yeah,
good. Sorry about that.
no worries.
So Santa Anna, Santa Anna's latter or latter day comrades in Mexican history would include people like Benito Juarez, another Mexican nationalist, a consolidationist. And that's rather the legacy of Mexico. Mexico still does have states and does have a federal system, but with a strong nationalist bent, not unlike that of the United States. And Santa Anna could have been a Lincoln type figure if had his career lasted longer, but he does resurface later on. We'll find him again in the Mexican War. His prominence these days is interesting. Mexicans who know the history and such still treasure Santa Anna to some degree, and that is manifest in repeated Mexican requests for the return of Santa Anna's peg leg, which is a funny event. I don't want to spoil it too much, but we captured Santa Anna's peg leg in the Mexican War, and it's now on museum display in Illinois.
No.
Yes,
Whereabouts in Illinois?
Oh my goodness.
Springfield.
Ah,
Wow. Well, that's pretty
And
cool.
the Mexican ambassador to the United States has requested its return many times, but
hmm.
has not yet gotten it, which is a curiosity.
Oh, I know where we got it, I think. Oh man, we should probably return it, but also we should keep it.
Two minds.
Well, Santa Anna had quite a prominence partly because of that peg leg. That's kind of what cemented his reputation in Mexico.
Let's spoil it real
After
quick. It was fighting the French.
he was, yes, and a French cannonball took off his leg uh, while the French were bombarding the Mexican coast near Veracruz. And Santa
Hmm.
Anna was rallying his men and ordering them to shoot back and so on. And a Mexican cannonball took off his leg, and so he was famously pulled by that and had a peg leg, which he later lost in the Mexican War, which we'll get to later.
And one real quick
But
aside about that is the doctors who amputated that leg did not do a good job and left bone exposed past the flesh. They folded over the bone, so it
Oof.
agonized him the
oh,
rest of his life.
good
Not that I'm
heavens!
sympathetic to Santana because of his actions, but yeah, yeah. He is a fascinating character, like you said.
Well, Valesco, the so-called Treaties of Valesco, ratified with Santa Anna and the Texas Provisional Government. There were two elements of the treaty. There was a public treaty and there was a secret treaty. This gets ratified in Texas May 14th, 1836. So just a few weeks after San Jacinto. The public treaty was that there's a formal ceasefire between Mexico and Texas. Santa Anna agrees not to take up arms. The Mexican army is supposed to withdraw south of the Rio Grande. The Texans are to stay 5 leagues away from the retreating Mexicans to avoid any further hostilities. The Mexicans are supposed to restore property that had been seized by the Texans and exchange prisoners. And once the treaty's points are met, Santa Anna is to be returned to Mexico. Now, this is all obviously done under duress. Santa Anna is prisoner of war. And it's on these grounds that it gets repudiated by the Mexican government under Bustamante. But the secret treaty is that Santa Anna will use his influence for the recognition of the independence of Texas,
And that
which Santa Anna, ever the diplomat, is very enthusiastic that he can secure this. It's not going to be a problem.
Hmm.
and
And
that's
that
what he
what will follow is
that's when he went to
go
DC and
ahead.
talked to everybody. He was about to be put on a ship shortly after San Jacinto. I mean, Sam Houston and all of the Texan commanders are going to put him on a ship and take him back to Veracruz so he can go to Mexico City. And on the ship, on the the plank that goes to the ship from the dock, he said, "You have whipped me. I am your prisoner." And then he goes, "But Filasola is not whipped. He will not surrender as a prisoner of war. You must whip him first." And then he basically says, "I will secure Texas victory when I'm going back in Washington, D.C." But then he was captured on the boat, taken off the boat by a whole bunch of newly arrived actual Americans, not Texans. And then he was corralled into a prison at Fort Defiance, I believe. And then he was eventually taken up to Washington, D.C., where he said, "Look, I'll secure Texas independence from Mexico, or and then you'll be fine." But he got back to Mexico. I think you're about to explain this, and immediately was like, "I'm going to find every single possible way to get Texas back," which we might have to talk about next week. But yeah,
Yeah, he's very two-faced about this, obviously, given his actions. This is the one card he has left to play. I'm going to help you. I'm your friend. Send me back to Mexico. So the secret treaty of Valesco was that it would ensure recognition, treaty to secure commerce over the Rio Grande, and a national boundary at the Rio Grande, which is also unusual because to this day there are very few people living south of Corpus Christi, between there and the Rio Grande. You've got a bunch of towns down on the Rio Grande. You got Laredo and Brownsville and all that. Um, None of that was there at the time. It was just a desolate valley with hardly any population. But that was the audacious territorial claim of Texas.
As I
They
say in my
wanted that.
episode, after the revolution ends, the Texans never made any effort to populate south of the Nueces, which was the Mexicans' boundary, even though ours was the Rio Grande and the Texans was the Rio Grande. After the revolution, for 10 years, very, very few Texans went south of the Nueces and covered this territory you're talking about now.
Well, it was part of the insecurity they felt because the treaties of Valesco are repudiated by President Bustamante. He says Santa Anna offered nothing in the name of the nation. So he's not the political leader of Mexico, according to Bustamante, and he obviously suffers a huge popular setback by his embarrassment, his humiliation at San Jacinto. Santa Anna does make it back to Mexico, but is obliged to go into exile. He does not have a place in the regime. And he settles in Cuba, looking for a way to get back to Mexico and restore his political fortunes, which does eventually happen. He had a brief chance. So the Texans are in a tough spot. They've won conclusively, but they do not have a treaty with Mexico. So according to the Mexican government, they are still a rebellious province. And this is another problem with the Mexican regime, is not politically feasible for any leader of Mexico to go out and say, we need to conclude something in regards to Texas. They have to pitch the popular idea of the reconquest of Texas. So, in spite of American recognition, Andrew Jackson's government recognizes Texas independence in 1837 because major Mexican forces do withdraw from Texas
as an independent republic.
Yes, indeed, they recognize it as an independent republic. The Mexicans are alarmed at the quick growth of the Texas Army. It swells to over 3,000 after the victory at San Jacinto. Houston never commanded that many on the field. They're rallying at Matamoros because of a projected incursion of another Mexican army from the south. The Mexicans turn around and go back over the Rio Grande. This after San Jacinto, and the Texans have realized the integrity of their territory. So the response is the American government under Andrew Jackson recognizes the independence of Texas in 1937, establishes treaties with them. Houston stands for election for the president of Texas, and virtually all of the voters in that election, all 6,000 of them roughly, are in favor of the annexation of Texas into the American Union. This is what Houston runs on. He displaces the unpopular Burnett, who has never had an election. He had the political presence to be the provisional president, but is remembered mostly for countermanding and conflict with Houston. And
That
Houston's the man of the hour.
it was actually Smith. It was Smith that ran against Houston. It was Smith, Austin, and Houston. And Houston received over 5,000 votes. Smith, who was governor during the dismal failure of both Fannin and the Alamo, he received 700 votes. And Stephen F. Austin ran, and he received 587. The
Wow.
father of Texas received 587 votes, and Houston received 5,119 votes.
And poor Austin, he was quite humiliated by that. Houston,
And he wasn't
Houston
long for this earth.
Indeed. But Houston recognized Austin's achievement and value and put Austin in his cabinet as Secretary of State. Is that right?
Yes, Secretary of War, actually.
Oh,
wait,
was he Secretary of
hold
War?
on. No, Lamar became Secretary of War. Houston became Secretary of State. Yeah, or Austin. Sorry, goodness. Bonaparte Lamar became Secretary of War, and Austin became Secretary of State. And he was sent north to do stuff, and yeah.
Well, Houston immediately sends a diplomat to Washington to try to arrange for the annexation of Texas. But Andrew Jackson's administration, they're very cordial, but they also make it known this is no time to annex another state to the Union. It would certainly mean war with Mexico. And even way back in the Jackson administration, everyone was quite aware of that. The treaties of Velasco were not going to stand any scrutiny in Mexico. They were signed under duress by Santa Anna, who was also totally duplicitous about it and did not mean to carry out his end of the agreement. So the situation in Texas there in 36 and 37, they've won the field. They've secured the claimed territory. They can't maintain it. They do not have their financial situation in order. And when we return, we'll be talking more about the situation of the Texas Republic and its great stresses during this period. Houston tries to effect the annexation of Texas into the American Union. That's his number one priority, but it is impossible at this stage. There is no political will in the United States to bring the sections together to annex this gigantic and very unique new slave state populated overwhelmingly with Southerners. And most unfortunately for the Texans, the laissez-faire priorities of those Southerners with their strict Jeffersonian kinds of Republican views meant that Houston's government could not fund or do anything about their gigantic war debts. There just was no political will to tax.
And by war debt, you mean paying the soldiers who fought in the revolution. I mean, they were not paid for years. But there's a really quick, there's a great quote because Austin gets Santa Anna to DC secretly, so he's not lynched along the way. And there was, let me find the quote here. Oh, Rhode Island newspaper wrote this about Santa Ana. They said, okay, no, I didn't actually quote it. So I'll just quote my own thing. The Southerners were taken aback by him. They couldn't believe this polite and dignified man had ordered the slaughter of the Texans that they rallied behind. But as he went north, he became not a vile massacrer, but instead a champion of freedom. Now, why would this happen? Well, one Rhode Island newspaper put it well, okay, when they wrote, quote, "How can we style him, Santa Ana, a tyrant, since Santa Ana had fought and bled to contravene the efforts of those who wished the substantial, the horrible system of slavery."
Mm.
So the North rallied behind Santa Ana when he went through those towns. Yeah.
As a liberal hero, which he certainly wanted to be known as.
Yep.
There is nothing new under the sun.
Well, this has been delightful. Great way to cover the affected independence of the Texas Republic. Wonderful place full of wonderful people. I've often been mistaken for a Texan. I never grudge anyone mistaking me for one. Happy to be counted as one of their number, though I've never lived there. Great place.
I am pleased that you are delighted, for I have further delights on offer vis-a-vis the super chats. Bolero393 sends $5 saying, Sam Houston is a fascinating American, wounded at Horseshoe Bend, deeply embedded with the Cherokee, hero of San Jacinto, and opposed to Texas secession. Thank you, Bolero.
Amen.
Bolero is not done, for he sends a further $10 saying, Perfidious Santa Ana, hid in a private's uniform at San Jacinto, double-crossed President Polk when he led him back into Mexico to sell us California. It is
Spoiler
well he
alert.
was soundly defeated twice. Hear, hear.
Yeah, spoiler alert.
Bolero393 continues to monopolize the Super Chat conversation with a further $10. Houston reminds me of Washington in several ways: physical courage in battle, strategic over tactical victories, father of a nation. Differences: George Washington couldn't be hit by bullets and had no romantic scandals. So true, Bolero393. Thank you a third time. And now I shall thank you a fourth time, for you send another $10 saying, Santa Ana's peg leg for the voluntary return of every Mexican in the American lands held under the treaties of Paris, Louisiana Purchase, Adams-Onis Treaty, Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, and Oregon Treaty. Indeed,
Hear,
a
hear.
diplomatic tour de force.
Hear, hear.
All right, that is all the super chats. Bolero is the hero of the evening, as Sam Houston was the hero of San Jacinto. Mr. Bagby, do you have any closing thoughts and/or shillings to present us with before we get out of here?
Yes, indeed. I've got a biography of Sam Houston from my press, The Raven
very
by
topical.
Marcus James, which is not yet on my website, but if you check out my Twitter handle at Tallman Books, you can find the link there.
Excellent.
So if you want to know more about this remarkable American born in Virginia, governor of Tennessee, president of Texas, there is no better way to find more information than James's splendid and literary biography.
Excellent. That sounds like just the thing. Mr. Wayne Riley, have you got anything for us before we get out of here?
I got two things. The first is to buy Bagby's books at Tallman Books. I have used them now in multiple series. They are great. And the American Southwest, Thomas Wayne Riley, wherever you got social media or way to listen to a podcast, even on the dreaded YouTube, which I guess we're on right now. But yeah.
Do you have any upcoming reenactments this summer?
I did one on Saturday at Fort Stanton. We did civil. There were 4 cannons and 1 mortar. There were even Apache there.
Oh,
And
wow.
Yeah, they were doing some dance, whooping and hollering. I learned from one of the old guys who's been doing this for 30 years here that about before COVID, about 8 years ago, the Civil War reenactors and the Apaches kind of got together and were like, "Hey, you guys want to do like a mock battle between?" And so they did, but it has been banned since COVID. But we're going to bring it back
Oh,
next year. We're going to have a mock command or Apache Civil War battle. But I
Wow.
don't have any coming up yet that I could think of, unfortunately. Yeah, I just did one over the weekend. That was almost 4 weeks in a row. Well, no, not quite, but yeah, 4 weeks in the last month and a half.
wool uniforms in New Mexican July.
Oh man, I was wearing 3 pieces of wool.
Wow.
But the monsoons came and cooled us down. So
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you very much, both of you gentlemen. It is, as always, a pleasure and a delight to explore the history of our heritage with you fine gentlemen. And chat, thank you very much for coming out, and have a lovely